Welcome back to Easy Education. I'm Easy to Chris, and I'm here hopefully to make education a little bit more easy for you. It's week 13. I'm feeling nice. We're going into quarter two, getting a whole brand new focus, and I'm kind of excited for the focus specifically, not necessarily the book. I'm going to be really honest with you. So we're in week 13, we're changing what the quarter's focus is on, and the quarter's focus is now on framing your voice as well as, well, I guess that's what it is. It's actually developing your voice and learning how to frame it. So, framing your voice is kind of the condensed version of what this quarter's lesson is. So, this week, week 13, we're going through the book Thinking in Systems, a primer by Donella Meadows. Really quick introduction, which is chapters 1 and just the introduction. So really quick. It was like 35 pages. However, this is a very dry read in comparison to all of Q1. Q1 was actually really exciting. It kind of got you into the space of, hey, we're going to be doing some fun things. Let's make sure you know that it's fun. Let's put you in the headspace that this is fun. And then Q2 just comes in and is like, okay, you know how people talk about those really boring classes in school that they just have to get through? This one, that's what this one is. Now, the week's focus was how incentives shape behavior, and the lens that we were reading is behavior follows structure, not intention. The focus this week is why people keep doing things they claim to hate. Now, one of the big things that it does talk about is feedback loops. And you can have positive feedback loops in life, you can have negative feedback loops in life. That is just the hole that you dig yourself deep into that's harder and harder to get out of. A feedback loop could be, I eat because I'm sad, and I'm sad because I'm overweight, so I continue to eat. And then it's a feedback loop that just is a snake eating its own tail. And because that feedback loop is a negative one, how do you find your way out of that? Whereas a positive feedback loop, for me in my experience, is I'm working out, which is something that I don't enjoy. However, I've noticed results, and I enjoy those results, so I continue working out, which promotes a healthy lifestyle, which continues to show me progress through results physically, which increases my attitude, which makes me further want to do it. And it's a snake eating its own tail. It's a feedback loop, but it's one that could arguably positive as opposed to a negative feedback loop. When it talks about thinking in systems, this book is very much for people who are wanting to get into some kind of management. It's really designed for people who want to have high-level thinking on things. Because if you think of everything as a system, then you can recognize the individual components of that system in a way where you can really value individual pieces over the whole collective. So I'll kind of give you an example in a way that, having career experience in the past of management, I went into my independent business, a barbershop, and I created it as a system. And I've incorporated vertical integration into some aspects of the business. Now, you could call it just the barbershop. And if you're looking at it as a barbershop, people come in, they get their haircut, they leave. That's the inflow and outflow. You have people who want to get haircuts, they get their haircut, they pay me money, so they come in with haircuts and I leave with money. That's the system. It works kind of nice. Now, within one system, you can have multiple layers of other systems. So for my barbershop, for instance, I don't have employees. I actually have contractors. So I run my own business within the barbershop, but then Lillian runs her own business, and she operates a little bit different than the way that I do. Jim operates his business within the barbershop. So now we've added complexity into this system. And you can look at it as there are 3 barbers in the barber shop, and if one barber were to leave the shop, could they be replaced? And would the barber shop as a whole system still function, even though you have one component that's switched out? Much like, in hockey, if somebody is injured, you can swap them out for another player, and the team is still able to function. They're still able to move forward. Now, what happens if one of those systems has a different function or role within the overall system? What if it's not Jim that leaves the barbershop? What if it's me that leaves the barbershop? Okay, hypothetical here. Well, I'm the guy who runs the thing. So if I leave the system, am I a crucial part of the system to the extent that now the overall system is going to fail without me? Or have I put enough processes in place where that place can continue operating without me for a sustainable amount of time? At what point does it become unsustainable? At what point does the system at large fail? Now, I add a little bit more complexity into it. I have a nonprofit art gallery that operates within the barbershop. And today actually was kind of fantastic because local artist Logan Pyman came in and he's doing his installation. It'll be available from all of April and all of May. And I'm really excited because I haven't had an artist display in for a little while, which, if you have an art gallery, you kind of need to have art. So I've had my own display for a little while. Now, this system just had a major change. And how this system is vertically integrated into the barbershop is, okay, you come in and you provide conversation starters for the clientele that comes into the barbershop. The barbershop could potentially have an opportunity to purchase artwork from an artist directly, and the shop doesn't actually make any money. The way that the shop benefits is that now you as an artist are advertising for free for me because you're telling all of your followers and all of the people that are already interested in your art about this gallery space that you're in and how you're getting an opportunity. This is kind of fantastic because it's a symbiotic relationship that I can have with local artists to promote local art and making sure that money goes into the pocket of local artists, which helps build the reputation of the barbershop. It also builds up the local community and it feeds the barbers with potential clientele. I think that this is a really interesting way to be able to operate on small scale. The more complexity that you have in your system, probably the more people that are going to be touching it, the more people that'll need to be paid, the more you can do it in a way where you might not necessarily be able to do it absolutely free. Who knows? Every system is a little bit different. But the whole point of what I'm trying to get to here is if you start thinking about things in systems, you can recognize where the value points are. And once you recognize where the value points are, you can really, really hone in and focus on what's really important, and also recognize, is this one thing causing an impact to another thing? If I were to get a local artist to come in who had sacrilegious art and it were to offend one of the barbers or offend one of the clients, would I shut down the entire barbershop because one of the clients is offended? Or would I take focus on the individual system component that is a part of the larger system at large in order to be, larger system at whole? That's kind of a silly way of saying that. But you need to make sure that the health of the system at large is in good order. So being able to come into this book, it's really talking about a lot of the concepts that I've learned from a few prior careers. Now, the book in and of itself, this is a boring read. I know that there is value in the last chapter, and I'm going to find where the value is at because I'm going to get to the last chapter. But this is the first book that I have to sit down in my office with no distractions and simultaneously be looking at the book and listening to the audiobook so I can have no distractions and I am entirely focused on the message and nothing is slipping away from me because it's really hard to capture my attention. And I think that that's one of the big struggles of, neurodivergency with any type of learning is recognizing you're gonna get distracted at some point. I see shiny objects over there all the time, and I'm more curious on what those shiny objects are over there 99% of the time. And realistically, getting a focus on a single book that doesn't hold your interest, you have to find how is there value in it. And this comes back to that original question of why is it that people who are not doing the things that they want to do, why can't they get themselves out of that trap? And for me personally, I think it's because they don't understand that there is value to be had. They don't recognize that there is a little bit of work that you have to put in to be able to get the carrot at the end of the stick. And I'm really fortunate where the first quarter, I saw tangible results with what it is that I've been trying to learn. And I've had some really great tangible, practical application. Like I said in prior episodes, being able to have this space in my office be what I need it to be. I can now really quickly come in here, turn on, be able to do these podcasts and not really overthink about it, especially when, I'm alone in a room talking to myself with no interaction. It's a challenging thing climbing Cringe Mountain. But like I said, the perspective that I have with this is I know that there's value in the last chapter. I want to find the value, and I know that it's probably in the last chapter. I'm not going to skip to it, but I am going to get to it. And I wish that more people would be able to recognize that friction points are just simply that. Those are your opportunities for growth. And if you can get through those initial friction points to realize where your value is, then you might be able to retrain yourself out of some of those negative feedback loops and be able to start focusing some of your perspective on how to build positive feedback loops and get yourself out of it. Now, I am curious, how would you guys recognize systems that are in your life? How would you build a system to be able to get yourself out of a negative hole that you might find yourself in? I'd really love to know, so leave comments down below. You can easily get a hold of me through the comment section wherever this podcast is streaming, which is Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. You can also find the YouTube video available. If you want to just take a look at any of the written work that I'm doing, the essays that are alongside of these videos, you can follow me on my Substack. It's Easy to Chris. Or you can find both the written content as well as the video content on my website, easytochris.com. Now, next week, going into week 2. Not week 2. Week 2 of quarter 2. Next week is actually week 14. And we're still going to be in this book. We're still going to be thinking in systems, but we're going to be going through chapters 2 and 3. Next week's focus will be why good intentions fail, and we're going to be looking through the lens of feedback loops and delayed consequences. Don't fall. Don't fall. Now, for those of you who are interested, the other books that we're going to be going through this quarter, Skin in the Game by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and Seeing Like a State by James C. Scott. I have no idea when we're reading those. I have no idea what we'll be reading about. I have no idea what those books are about. But right now, we're thinking in systems. And until next time, be well, guys.